the hard thing these days, right? Is it's so jaded knowing like, okay, is this person a fake? Do they have reach or do they have results, right? And
Yeah.
too many people have reach without the results.
This episode is brought to you by Big Storage Ventures. We are now inviting you to team up and partner alongside us. We bring our experience hunting storage deals and maximizing the self-storage asset to provide our partners with cash flow, tax benefits, and appreciation, all in one recession-resistant asset. Leverage our sister company, Big Ben's Moving Service, to fill your facility and give you an edge over the competition. Reach out to bigstorageventures@gmail.com or DM Big Storage Ventures on Instagram to team up. Well, today I'm super pumped. We had Brody Fausett, real estate investing school and entrepreneur mogul, on the show, and he fed us well.
Yeah, I think you'll get another glimpse of him, and we go deep dive into a lot of different areas, and I think you'll really enjoy this episode.
Enjoy the show. Thanks for coming on, and I mean, you're coming to us from Hawaii, so I guess the first thing that came to my mind was like, how has that been? Like, has there been more obstacles than you anticipated running the show clear across the ocean, or has it been pretty seamless?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, that's like the whole goal is like freedom, right?
Yeah.
Location freedom, time freedom, financial freedom, all of it. And so really not a lot changes on the location side of things. So that's been fine. But it's just a balance. It's interesting because the lifestyle is way more laid back over here, which is a really good thing, but then it can also be a bad thing for some people. And so it's just all about finding that balance. And you can swing like both ways, right? Like you can spend too
Yeah.
much time lay back, hanging out at the beach and not enough time grinding, or you can spend too much time grinding. And the other day I was like, dude, it's been like 2 weeks since I've been to the beach and or surfed. And I'm like,
What?
what am I doing? Like this is why I'm here, you know? So like I need to fix that.
Wow. Yeah, I could see it. Are you saying that the culture out there is just, it rubs off on you a little bit, or like it could? Is that just what people are more like out there, kind
Yeah,
of?
I think it could. Yeah.
Yeah.
It hasn't really rubbed off on me too much yet. Just because I love business and I love like the building of all of it. It's just fun and addicting. But like I've seen it a lot of people where all they do is they just want to play 24/7. So it's just finding that balance, I guess.
Yeah. And I mean, you're living at the playground. It's all right there at your fingertips. So
Yeah.
I don't
But overall, it's been awesome, man. It's been so good. It's been fun for like the family, the kids. Like most of our time is spent outside. The kids most of their time is spent outside, and just like little things like run around. Like I don't work out with my shoes on anymore. It sounds so simple, but it's just like I literally drove to the gym, which is like 15 minutes away from my house this morning. And I didn't have shoes the whole way. I didn't have shoes in my car. I just drove there and got worked out and
It's
drove
legit.
home. So
It's
just
the
a little
dream.
bit different. Then you just don't think about things like, I don't know, like our kids. My wife was saying the other day, she's like, I would not take our kids out right now in public, but like it's just different out here. You just do it. Like you don't care if their hair's not done or they're not matching or whatever. So those things are good, I feel like.
Wonderful. Ben and I, we in our last podcast we recorded, he asked me a question about like what I've learned from all the people we've been podcasting with, and something that came to my mind was actually something you said in your YEC call, which wasn't from our podcast, but something that was on my mind was you talking about, if you want to get to this place in your life, you need to make those steps. You need to take those steps. You need to maybe change your trajectory to get to this place. And for me, just like recently, making some big changes in my life, you know, to get from, you know, you talk all the time about going from 6 figures to 7 figures and, or whatever it may be, whatever your goal is, but you have to make decisions and do those things that are going to get you to that place, has been like had a big impact on me and my decisions and the path that I've been making in my life. So thank you for that. But I just thought it was funny because I'm like, oh, that's, you, Brody came to my mind, but others.
Yeah, I mean, how do you execute on that, right? So if you that's a good way. I mean, that's a principle that Kallan learned, but when you recognize you need to make trajectory changes, what are some of the ways that you're, putting that into practice?
Yeah, dude, that's good. Good questions. And I like how you put it just from the standpoint of like the trajectory, right? If it's like, hey, I think sometimes it's too many people aren't real with themselves and looking at things just black and white. Hey, I'm looking in the mirror, like I'm being honest with myself. Is what I'm doing now going to get me to where I ultimately want to end up? And like, if you're not pacing for that, I think that's the first step is to have that recognition with yourself and realize like, okay, hold on, nothing changes if nothing changes, and I need to change something if I want my results to actually change. And so I think that first thing is getting clarity on what it is that you actually want. And that's like, I think it answers your question, because like the more clear you can get on the type of life that it is that you want to live, maybe it's the schedule that you want to have, with your time, maybe it's the money you want to make, the house you want to live in, whatever it is, like the more clear you can get with all of those things and what that looks like, the easier it is to go and actually achieve it and go and build that. And so when there's clarity, if there's no clarity, then it really, there's no drive, right? Because you don't know what you're chasing. And if you don't know what you're chasing, like you might as well just keep doing what you're doing because you're not pursuing anything. And so I think a lot of people, they have like deep down, they're like, oh, I know this isn't what I want.
Yeah.
I know I want something different, right? And I would say like you need to explore that. Like, what is it that you want? What does that look like? And then cool, now let's reverse engineer it so we can start taking those action steps towards it.
Yeah. And the reverse engineering part is really where the skill that needs to be developed comes in, because I think a lot of people will look and, maybe they won't look square in the mirror, but they'll maybe peek in the mirror and see, okay, I don't think I'm doing what it takes to get there, but I don't know what the steps are. Like now, maybe subconsciously even they say, okay, I see that I'm not doing what I need to do, but I don't know how to change where I'm at because I can't see the better way forward. And I think as a business owner, you'll look at that a lot and say, okay, if I want to take your example from going from 6 figures to 7 figures, right? You say, okay, I want to get there, but right now, all these activities that I'm doing are it's the most I know how to make more money, and taking a step back and reverse engineering is the hardest part of that. And I think one skill set that probably comes into play a lot, Brody, is delegation. One thing that I've heard you say is delegate to dominate, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so maybe teach us a little bit about why delegation is so clear. Once you get your clarity, right, I think one of the next steps is going to be delegation. And I'd say that's somewhere where you've excelled, and kind of what could you offer in delegation?
Yeah, dude, I love the concept of delegating, and I wasn't always super good at it, and I'm still getting better at it. But ultimately, look at it, like we only have so much time, right? And so it is what it is. Like there's just so many hours in a day, and we as individuals can only accomplish so much in those hours. And so if we're relying on one person and one person only to get whatever it is you need done, and maybe you can get it all done, but you can't. You might think you can, but ultimately you can't, right? Because
Right.
there's something bigger, better, different. You can always be spending more time, with your family. You can always spend more time, whatever, strengthen your relationship with God. Like there's there's always more time that we need, right? And so I think the sooner we realize that we only have so much time, the better. And the way that we do that and the way that we multiply our time is by obviously eliminating stuff, but also delegating stuff. And then the other one is just dominating stuff, right? Like, what are you really, really good at? Understanding what you're good at and just doubling down on that. But like going back to the delegation part, like even last night, you guys can't see my whiteboard, it's right here, but I probably have 100 things written down on it right now. And like I was just like yesterday, it felt like a pinball machine. Boom, 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 all these things going through my mind. And I need to do this, I need to get this done. You're laughing because you feel the same way. You know exactly what I'm talking about, don't you?
We had one of those days, huh? Yes.
So like I wrote everything out, and ultimately like I realized, and the reason I wrote everything out, like what are these topics that are bothering me? What are the things within these topics that like are on my mind I need to get done? And I realized like, oh, I'm not delegating as well as I should be right now, and that's why I'm feeling the pressure of it. And so if you almost think of it like hot potato, right? Like something comes in your lap, you need to get rid of it as fast as you can to somebody else who can get it done, right? Like you don't want to hold on to it. And the problem I think happened to me yesterday is like I was getting stressed out because I had too many potatoes that jumped in my lap and I wasn't passing them off. I was just holding on to them. And so that was like something I did. And the next step was going through every single thing and being like, okay, what are my most important items on this list, right? What are the top 5? That's it, most important things. And then what are all the things that I can delegate? And I just got a different color marker. I went through and I marked everything, a check mark next to it if I could delegate it, who I was delegating it to, and then I went ahead and did it right then and there. And then my list got drastically smaller, right? And I also went through like, okay, what do I need to just eliminate that I shouldn't be doing right now, or that's not my, doesn't have the most potential, or I'm not the best at. And so that helped me a ton. But like ultimately realizing that there's people that do things better than you do them. So like they should be doing them. You should delegate it. But I think the biggest thing is like understanding your worth and believing your worth. And if you can believe like, hey, no, I'm worth this much money per hour, or I'm worth this type of a task. And so you stop doing things that are below your pay grade. It sounds harsh. It is what it is. But like, you're like, hey, I'm not going to do this because my time's more valuable than that, right? And I need to pass this off and give this to somebody else. And so one of like probably the best things that I've ever done, because I spend a lot of money on payroll, believe it or not, just with like my executive assistant, and then a few other employees that like take so much off my load, and it costs me a lot of money every single month. And it kept me because of like the dollar that it was going to cost me. And I'm like, oh, I can keep that. I can just do that. And so for like years, I would just hold on to stuff and not do it. And then finally, just like spending the money, paying the salaries, and like just being done with it has been like the hugest thing for me, because I'm able to double down on what I'm good at. And it's honestly just taken so much stress off my plate.
Yeah, it opens up everything. It's a lesson that takes a long time to learn, and especially like you said, when you're a hustler and you know that you could get a bigger piece of the pie, takes a long time to just learn that you can grow the pie. And as you were talking, I was thinking of this. I really love to use the metaphor of triage, like a medical doctor. So like they have this ER going on, and they basically have to identify, okay, what's urgent, what's important, and what's both, and how do I prioritize these things in order, like your hot potatoes, right? And then eventually, not only are they going to be able to handle the most important patients that need them first and get everything settled down in order, but then they can hire more medical professionals to come in, run the ER, so they can step outside of the ER and find the cure to cancer, and then build another hospital and work on all these other things. So they're doing, basically I always like to liken it to the medical side of it, because I relate it so much to a doctor that has all these patients coming in and all these stressful things going on, and you just have to get your ER running and then step out of it and keep keep doing good. So
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that too, Brody, that I'm sure there's so many business owners out there that's so hard for them to, like you said, to bite the bullet or whatever it is to pay individuals to take stuff off your plate. That's a real thing that people are struggling with every single day, especially like, yeah, to pay for, people to do those things you need them to get done. So I think that's a good point, a good takeaway.
absolutely. And
I think too, when you value time freedom, it changes, right? Because um, it's like I'd rather just like using random numbers, right? Let's say I don't know, a salary for an executive assistant costs, let's say it costs 50 grand, and you're currently making 150 grand, right? But you're working 40 hours a week. Like, is it worth $50,000 for you to work 20 hours a week? Like, to buy back your time, is that worth 50 grand? And like, when you look at it that way, it's like, yeah, it is, because then I can double down on those other 20 hours, right? And then I can go, double down on my business, and now maybe I make 300 grand because I have the time. And I think without looking at it like that, it's really hard to see the value in making that leap.
how long ago did you hire your executive assistant?
So I've had a few over the years.
Right now, is it Brittany?
Yeah, it's Brittany
She's
right now.
she's awesome to work with, by the way. Yeah, she's awesome.
Yeah, well, good. She's yeah, she's amazing. By far the best one I've had. So she definitely is like on top of me, which is what I need, like someone who's just gonna keep me in line. But I don't know, I would say like at first it started part-time, like a couple years ago, just having some help. And then really not until probably like a year ago that I actually start like full-time, somebody only works for me as my assistant.
Okay. No kidding. Wow. Well, I've always thought about like what that would be like to, when do you make that jump, right? And I guess I'm picking on that one specifically because it's something I'm curious about. Like, when is that going to make sense for me too? I'm not there yet, but what are some of the first things? This is kind of a tangent, but it's something I'm really curious about. What are some of the first things that you delegated to them, and I guess what are some of the biggest things they take off your plate and add value to your life?
Yeah. So it was interesting with Brittany, like, because I kind of been through a few different ones. I'm like, okay, I want this to, I started to value like I'd hire someone to do like my real estate management, right? And
Yeah.
then like it would kind of rub into like a couple of other things that were like off of the real estate topic. And then I'd hire somebody else and they would kind of like do real estate and this. And so I'm like, this next go around, like I just want someone that actually knows the ins and outs of my life and like everything going
Mm.
on. I literally called her the other day because I was at the I was getting TSA, a background check
Pre-check.
or whatever. And I don't know why, but I like blanked out and I couldn't remember my social. I was mixing two numbers up and I'm like, is it 7-6 or 6-7? Like I could not remember. And I called her, and of course she had my social memorized, right?
Wow.
I'm not saying you have to go that far with every assistant, but I wanted someone that had like really high level trust there and just like knew everything. And so with her, and Brittany's definitely like overqualified to be my executive assistant, but she was a nurse in the Air Force, and when she
Oh,
put
wow.
her I think she had to give them like 3 weeks notice or something like that. And so we started meeting like those 3 weeks, just for an hour a week, and we would go through. We divided my entire life into pillars. So we have 8 pillars. I probably have them right here. I can pull them up, but
Wow.
and so we just literally like took a pillar and divided it out, and we go through the entire pillar. Okay, what does that look like? What are all your passwords, the credit cards, all of that? What's your vision for what you want this pillar to look like? What do you want to grow it to? All of these things, right? What are the big pain points right now inside of this category? I'm curious what all 8 are. I'll see if I can pull them.
Actually, I'm dying
Yeah,
to know
yeah,
the
list 'em
8
off.
pillars of Brody's life. That's great.
Yeah, let's see. See, if Brittany was here, I'm already like, Brittany, where are those at? And she's like, um, let's
No,
see. They're in Google Drive. I'll find them.
that's seriously amazing, though. I mean, I think that would be a tremendous value, especially my and it's good that it's someone that's close to your family. I guess I can relate because my mom, she's also very overqualified, but I think she kind of plays that role for me right now, where she's managing a lot of the things in my business, where she frees me up to take care of the big picture stuff. So
Yeah,
it's
so
It's a
good.
it's
big deal.
invaluable when you have someone
I,
like that.
I think too, like sometimes you have to go after those people, and that's how it was with her. I'm just like, like she was getting ready to have a baby, and she's like, I need something where I can be at home, be more flexible, and I'm like, oh, light bulb, maybe this is like an opportunity to recruit her. And the same thing, I think you guys know Kurt. Kurt works for me full time too at
Yeah.
real estate investing school, and like I had to like go after Kurt multiple times. He even like went through one job to another job in the middle of me trying to like get him on board, you know. And I still remember
Sounds
like
like
we
Kallan.
golfing, and I'm like, dude, I'm closing you, you know. And so I think like sometimes like talent is worth pursuing, and if you see somebody and you're like, dude, this is like they could be someone that could make a difference in my business and my life.
Yeah.
Like go chase that down, go after that, go make it worth it, you know.
Well, you
Uh,
can't overestimate the value, and you really can't overpay either. Like as much as you can afford, there it's gonna come back to you, and it's something that it's not when you start a business, you're holding on as tight as you can to all your money because it's so new to you, right? It's like this new thing, and it's almost like you were starving and now you have food. You're gonna eat as much as you can, and then you have to learn to share, right? And it's very much that way.
well, it's like it's like one step backwards, two steps
Yeah,
forward, right?
it is a step
And that's
back in
why I
some
even
cases.
say like you say like, oh, I don't know if I'm ready. I'm like, for sure you're ready. You know, if that's something you want, like you're definitely ready, right?
Yeah.
It might feel like, oh, it stings for a second because it's one step backwards, but then it's the whole concept of now it propels me, you know, forward because I was willing to do that.
Love it.
I have all my pillars. I found them. You want me to
Yay.
read them to
Let's
you?
read them.
Go. Yeah.
Let's see. There, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're actually 10.
You're
So
extra
let's see. So
stabilized.
this first one's like email and maintenance. So basically going through email and all that stuff and organization of that.
Okay.
The next one is like my properties, like real estate properties. Next one is business relationships, outreach, and podcasts. So obviously this, right? Like she took care of all this. Um, let's see. The next one's personal expenses / grooming. Next one is family and fun, which is nice. Like she'll schedule stuff. She'll make sure like my calendar stays, you know, open on Fridays and like
Good.
date nights and all that stuff. Real estate investing school, she helps out with that. More like that's like my main focus, my main business right now, right? And
Right.
so it's cool with her because like I have someone that I can jam on like visionary stuff, big picture stuff, or like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, this is what I want. And then it's really good because she understands enough of that and she's on enough of the calls that I have going on because that's what's cool about her working for me full time. And so she understands the ins and outs of a lot of it and how I think. And then she can make sure like that gets passed down to the integrator. So it
Yes.
goes from like the visionary to the integrator, but then she's like this middleman that helps pass it all through the right way, which I love because it just frees up a lot of time. The next one is investments and growth. And what's cool is we actually have like I'm looking at the vision board right now, but for each of these we have a vision on all of these of like what that looks like. One of the next categories is new ideas. So that's something like as you guys know, as entrepreneurs, we always have ideas, and like we want to see like, oh, is this worth pursuing or not?
Yeah.
And so a lot of cool stuff where I'm just like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. See if you can find if something like this already exists, and she'll go dive into it.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then one of them's personal brand and social media, so she helps with all that. And then um, overview and planning is like the last pillar, which is basically I'm big on like planning and scheduling stuff out. And so we'll meet every Monday. We'll have like a weekly planning execution meeting, like, hey, here are all the things that are on the list. Anything else we need to go over or need to make sure it gets done.
Love it, man.
It's awesome.
And I mean, it's a big deal because you have the people in your corner. They understand your vision, right? And yeah, we know Kurt well. I was actually on Kurt's podcast a couple weeks ago, so he's a lot of fun to work with. But one thing is he's really unified. You guys have a great relationship. Same with Brittany, and so that's actually ironically we split when Andrea came on our podcast. That's one thing that she really has in common with you, and obviously you guys are two peas in a pod, but everyone that works with her, she makes sure that they're unified in vision, and I think that you can't say enough about the value that brings to an organization, right?
100%.
Brody, I wanna go a little deeper into real estate investing school. You said that that's probably your pillars. That's your main business. That's kind of your focus, right? And
Yeah.
maybe tell us about when you realized that when were you called to create the course? Like, you had this success in real estate, you kind of built a brand. Tell us about knowing that it was time to start a course, and maybe some of the challenges that came with it that, for anyone that's starting a course might need to know.
Yeah. So for me, obviously I've always been passionate about real estate. I did it, and I think like I still do it. I still invest.
Yes.
And throughout the process, I don't know, something about doing it and realizing how cool it is. And I don't want to say how easy it is, because it's not necessarily that it's easy, but how anybody else can really figure it out and do it, and the freedom that it creates. Like, you just get excited about it, so you want to share it. And so I think that was like the first step. It just started sharing stuff on social media, like, oh, this is this house we did, or this is how we bought it, or this is how we didn't use very much money to buy it, and now it creates passive income. And so just sharing a lot of those things turned into a lot of people reaching out with questions and being like, hey, can you tell us more? Can you answer this for me? Can you jump on a phone call? And it just got to the point where, because I wanted to help. I love teaching. I think that's like one of the most fulfilling things, is when you can master something and then help other people start to master it and see what it does for them and how it changes their life. Like, it's so fulfilling. It's so fun to see those results take place in other people's lives and how it changes their life and they get excited about it. I love it. And so basically it just got to the point where it's hard to keep up on, because even though I wanted to help, like, I could only do so much. I could only answer so many questions, because it goes back to time, right? You only have so much of it. And so I was like, well, maybe I can spend a bunch of time up front now and just record, a ton of footage going through like everything that I've done, from how to find a property, how to analyze it, how to put a team together, how to run the numbers, how to pull the trigger on it, and how to rent it out and be a landlord, just all the stuff, right, that people ask about. And so did that and launched that as a course, because it was all done. This is at least 3 years ago. And so I did that, and it was awesome, and still have that, and people still buy that all the time. But then after that, people like, cool, like, love it. All the content's really good. Like, can you help me apply it and how it applies to me in my life and all that stuff? And so ultimately that's what led to the school and creating a coaching program around the trainings as well. And not just like, hey, here's the information, go figure it out, but like, here's the information, let me help you learn it, and let me show you how it applies to you, and then let's set goals together, and we'll help hold you accountable. And so that's ultimately how real estate investing school was was born. And so I would say to somebody else, like you're asking, how do you go and create a course or
Yeah.
create whatever, right? Because I think education is interesting, right? Because there used to be so much of this focus on going to school and getting education and getting a degree, and maybe they're still focused on it. I don't know. I don't hang around as many people that are so focused on it
Yeah,
anymore.
me neither.
Maybe it's me that's changed, and I don't know. Maybe the
I don't
focus
think
is
so. Yeah.
okay.
I think the times are changing a little.
I think so too.
It's
So I mean,
slower
with
moving.
that, right? Like it's like self-education. I feel like is such a big space, and it's like if you can go learn something, outside of like a professor that, no offense, a lot of professors are great, but like also a lot of them are so outdated.
Yes.
Like you go to business school. I literally knew. Yeah, I won't say too much, but like new professors they're like about to claim bankruptcy and they're teaching about business, right? And
Yeah,
so it's like you get some amazing professors, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it is stuff like that. And so it's like if you can go learn real world experience, or if you can go straight to the source and learn something for a fraction of the cost and do it in a fraction of the time, it's like, why wouldn't you do that? And so I think, yeah, for someone that has actual results, that's the hard thing these days, right? Is it's so jaded knowing like, okay, is this person a fake? Do they have reach or do they have results, right? And
yeah,
too many people have reach without the results, and it causes problems. But if you're someone who has like legit results, I think the first sign is like when people start asking you for advice. Hey, what do you do this, or how about this, or what about this? That's like a really good sign. Like people are interested in what I know, and ultimately taking that information and turning into something that, like I said, it comes back to time, where you don't have to spend time. You can spend time one time, right? Just like the idea of buying an investment property or rental property. Like you buy it once and it pays you forever. Like you
yeah.
put in the work once and it takes care of you for life. Like those are the things that I want to go and build.
Absolutely, man. And I think it says a lot about the value of the course is that people keep coming and they find so much value. I tell all my friends there's nothing more important no matter what your job is, if you're a business owner or just going to school or working a 9 to 5, probably the most important thing to build wealth is understanding real estate, right? And so a lot of people try to, maybe we'll talk a little bit more about the current market, but a lot of people try to time markets or wait till it's going to be perfect. And the reality is that if they took your course, they would understand the principles that they need to base their real estate decisions on, and they would build wealth. There's a lot of people that have the tax returns to do real estate, and they just don't because of misconceptions. And real estate investing school could solve the problem really fast. So thanks for teaching them, man.
Well, and I love this topic too. I mean, it's especially like the education topic because it's so new. Because, like you said, for the longest time, institutions were the gatekeepers of knowledge. They had the books, they had the professors that had the information, the knowledge, and we're just switching to this age where there's so much out there, and there's so much that people are giving for free that you can have like that can grow and do so much. And what came to my mind was what you guys are doing at the YEC. I mean, I'm new to the game. I'm new to like this world that you guys are in and all that's out there and the people that are providing quality information. But we did that call with who's the call that he was like the marketing, the brand guy.
Roger?
Yeah, Roger. Well, I got done with that call and I'm like, this was an MBA course. I just took an MBA course with one of these calls with the people you're bringing on, and what you can get like through podcasts and for other resources. And you can only imagine what Brody's gonna give in his course. You take his course, or if you do the personal coaching, if from what he's given for free.
Yeah.
And that's how it is. But it's so true because it's like so much more valuable that like I did that for free. I took an MBA course. It's impacted me today and something I'm gonna do tomorrow, and it's incredible. You don't have to pay, like you said, and do all that stuff for it, which there are some good things, that they are doing, institutions are doing. But anyways, I just want to put my 2 cents into that topic real quick.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, I completely agree. And that's what's cool about what you guys are doing, right? With this podcast and bringing people on and you get to hear like what different people are doing and what's working, and other people get to hear that. And I think that, books and podcasts are just like so underrated sometimes to the right people. And you almost forget, right? Like we're in this world of, we understand, like we get excited when we get to have these conversations and like
Yeah.
what's possible, and you can do this and you can take action or apply these certain things and you'll get these results. And you forget that a lot of people don't even know that, right? They really do feel like, hey, this is the way and this is the path that I'm on and I can't get off this path, and so I just might as well suck it up and deal with it. And so that's what's so cool about podcasts and books and like YouTube videos and seminars and masterminds and like all of that, is because it allows you to reprogram your brain to be like, oh, if I want something or a certain result, I don't care what path I'm on, right? Like I have a couple classes, one semester left in my finance degree. Like I didn't finish and I won't probably ever finish, right? I don't have any plans to. It's just like, it doesn't matter the path. Like you can get off anytime you want and go create whatever you want. And it's more of just understanding and diving into, hey, I can learn this and then I can replicate it and I can see the results if it's something that I really decide that I want to go and do.
Love that. I have one question for you, kind of going back to, the school and everything. And it's basically, what are you saying? What are you teaching that is against the grain? What are you teaching that's unpopular to, I don't know, the
Mainstream
main
real estate coaches?
Yeah. If there's a moral authority for real estate, if something comes to your mind.
Yeah, great question. So, a couple things. The first one is, as far as like what sets the school apart, it's for sure like the accountability. That's something that's really hard to find, and like information's everywhere, right? You can go on YouTube, you get information, you can it's everywhere. Like you can learn about real estate investing. But like I know it's not the information that gets you results, right? It's the application of the information. And so what's so different and unique about the school is like we have legit coaches that have been there, done that, right? In all these different fields. And so it's really easy for them to look at you and be like, cool, this is where you want to go. This is what you have to work with currently. Well, this is the path that we're going to take based on all of those things. And then I'm going to help hold you accountable every step of the way. And that's what you pay for in a coach, right? That's why you guys played sports. Like that's why you have a coach. Like imagine if the team got together without a coach, and like we all know how to play basketball, we all know how to play football, right? We all know the objectives and the rules. Like Mark said, go. It just doesn't work, right? You need somebody there that understands the big picture and that can take you step by step by step. And that's how you get results. And like real estate investing school aside, like you need mentors in your life. And like it's okay to pay for those people. And when you do that, right, you pay attention for one, but then it allows you to be in these different circles. And it's crazy what happens when you do that, because you get a different level of results, right? Because you have someone you're willing to pay to go faster in life and go bigger. And then the other thing with real estate investing school, if you ask anybody, like our focus is building passive income and doing that in a way that everybody can do it, right? Meaning you don't have to have a bunch of money. Your parents don't have to have a bunch of money that they give you to be able to invest or buy stuff for you. The strategy is not just to make money one time or flip a house or get like a 6-figure paycheck once, but the whole idea is how do we build long-term passive income? Because that mailbox money is what gives you freedom in life. It's what gives you control, what allows you to do the things that you want to do with the people you want to do them, where you want to do them at, right? It gives you freedom. And so one, we're all about building that passive income. That's what a lot of the focus is around and a lot of the strategies are around. And then two, we do that and we focus on strategies that allow you to do that and build that without having to have a ton of your own capital. So the problem with like always relying on your own money to invest, if you have it, great, right? It makes it easier. But the problem with always having to rely on that is it takes time, and it takes a long time. You got to save up, save up, save up, save up. Cool. You got enough for a down payment. Now I can go buy a house, right? And then the process starts again, save up, save up. And it takes a long time, and it's fun. You can do it that way, but we focus a lot on these other strategies that allow people to, do things bigger, but also do things bigger faster, and not rely on waiting for your bank account to fill back up.
Yeah, it's amazing what you can do without any money. There's a lot of work to be had in getting yourself out there in the real estate world. You'll find there's demand for putting deals together and doing other things that doesn't require any of your own money if you're looking hard enough. It's a big deal.
Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, you guys are in this world, so it's different, but there's a lot of people out there that they don't believe they can ever get into real estate. And I was one of them. Ben, you had this, you said this, you're like, I go to lunch with Brody and like, he says this, like you can do it if you did this and this and that. And like, it just went one ear and out the other. Cause I'm like, that's not me. That's not possible. And I say that cause I think there's a ton of other people out there that it's not possible to get into real estate because you don't have enough cash. You don't have a cash cow or whatever it may be, but that is a thing.
Well, and so what do you think would help switch paradigm? Where would the paradigm shift take place?
Well, I think it goes back to being hungry enough. That's really what it comes down to. And I don't know how, like, I know Brody's been asked that question before too, and maybe I'd want to spin on him, but like, how did you get hungry? Like, where does it come from? Where does the motivation come from? Where does the vision come from for anybody, for anyone? Because why did you wake up, Brody, and were like, I want to be, this is where I want to be, and this is why, and I want, 7 figures, and I want this lifestyle. Like, where does that ever come from? And then the motivation for anyone, I don't know the right answer. I think for some people, you just have to somehow choose that you want something more because you learn something and you're like, okay, I want that. Or maybe you're kind of forced because you're so hungry and you're sick of your life that you want, like, you're going to go and you're going to apply. And usually people have to hit rock bottom to do that. I think you don't have to. I think people can figure it out without hitting rock bottom. But I don't know. What do you have to say to that, Brody? I mean, because I've wondered that about you. Like, because you have these visions, you have all this stuff, but like, where does that come from? And is it just like you read a book, you heard someone, you saw something? I mean, and then you're motivated to go do it. That's not normal. It's not.
Question mark.
Question mark, then exclamation point. Dude, this is, I mean, it's so good, right? Because we can go so deep on this, which I love. But like, so I'm trying to think on how deep I want to go because I love the concept of like paradigm shifts, right?
Right.
And like the word paradigm, the word paradigm shift, it actually came from the science world, right? It's a guy named Thomas Kuhn. But basically, he talks about like 4 things that happen when you have a paradigm shift, right? And speaking of like the science world, so it's one, you have normal science, right? Things that exist. Like a good example is the earth, like back in the day, right? We thought that the everything revolved around the world, right? The sun revolved around the world. We just thought that for the longest time, right? Until like that was normal science. You ask anybody that, yeah, of course that's what happened. And later, right, we found out it's the opposite.
Yeah.
That not everything revolves around the world, right? It revolves around the sun, right? So, or maybe I said it backwards. I don't even know.
No, you're right. You're right.
Am I right? Okay.
Because people's data was, okay, we know for a fact that the Earth keeps spinning around the sun, so that must mean that the sun's spinning around us.
Well, what information do you have? The sun comes up, sun comes down. It looks like the sun's moving.
Sure.
Okay.
Looks like it, right? And I don't know all of the amazing scientists, but right, somebody famous looked through a telescope and realized like, okay, that's not how it works. But when that happens, that's the second thing. So you go from normal science and then you go to extraordinary research, right? So somebody finds something and there's like this anomaly. It's like, wait, this one guy thinks, and this will happen, right? This one guy looked through a telescope and he thinks that it actually is a different way. And then the third thing, and part of that research, he said on the second thing is like, you research that anomaly, you research it, you look into it, right? Like the same thing with Roger Bannister in the 4 minute mile, right? It wasn't like, we don't tell that story, we don't talk about that so much because he was the first person to run a mile in under 4 minutes. That's not why it's talked about. It's talked about because of what happened, right?
Because it was
After
impossible. It was physically impossible to do. That was
impossible to do. And then
that's what they said. That's what they said. That's the point of it. That's what they said. It was impossible to do. So no one would try it.
Yeah.
And then what happened as soon as he did it, right? Like someone, what is it, a week later, someone did it. A few weeks later, someone did it. Now you have high school kids that are running, sub 4 minute miles. And so like the point I'm trying to make is like, there's an anomaly and it goes from like this shift of like, okay, if one person did it, right, maybe I can do it. Or if one person believes the sun, whatever revolves differently, like, let me look into that and let me research that. And I think same thing goes where it's like, okay, if this person did this, right, in life and business and whatever, and they came from the same background as me, they're the same age as me, like, what did it take for them to do that? And like, maybe they're actually not that different for me. And the more we research it and look into it, right, we realize like, holy smokes, like they're nothing special. And if they did it, maybe I can do it. And then anyhow, the third one is just the adoption of like that new paradigm. And then fourth, it's just like the aftermath of all of that, right? You change because of that. Now science is changed. But like, I started researching all that because I love that whole concept. And it's like, hey, maybe if that's how it works in science, like we can replicate that same thing. And I really do think that you can, right? And I think it happens by default all the time, right? We see things happen a certain way, and then all of a sudden we start thinking about it differently.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I'm acting differently because of this one thing that I saw. And now the whole world's acting. And so I don't think it's any different with like leveling up in life, or right now it's probably someone who looks at it and goes through life and is just like, hey, I'm not capable of that, or that's cool. And I think that's a lot of what it comes back to. They'll see something happen and be like, that's awesome, but I could never do that. Right. And so I think there's power in studying people that have done that and how they've done it. And the more you look into that and the more you realize it's like, okay, maybe I actually can do that. And that's that first stage, that first belief. I went to a Tony Robbins like business mastery seminar a few years ago. It was awesome. But one of the stories, like it stuck out to me. And basically it's, I can't remember the guy's name, but he goes down as the largest treasure found at sea. He found it, right? Took him years and years and years. What's that?
I said, okay, yeah, I'm listening.
Okay.
He loves treasure is what Ben said.
No, the story's awesome. I love it. But ultimately goes through a lot of trials. Like he loses his son-in-law. I think he loses his wife. They die at sea, and ultimately he finds this treasure. It's $500 million is what it ends up being worth. Right? It's a true story. You Google it, look it up.
Wow.
But they're interviewing him afterwards. And I said, hey, like, why did you find the treasure? Why did you keep going? Everybody gave up. Like, tell us, how did you find this thing? And so he's like, three things. Okay. And he's like, the first one is I believe that the treasure existed, which sounds so simple, right? He's like, I had a belief that the treasure existed. And I think that's like the first step, right? Like, do we believe that something even exists, right? Is it even real? Is it even there? I love it. Like on social media, anytime I post something with like, has to do with numbers on a deal or a real estate deal, or how I got this property, what didn't cost me money, or what it rents for. Like you see half the comments are like, oh, that's amazing. That's so cool. Like, that's awesome. How can I do that? And then you look at the other comments and it's just like straight hate, right? Like, no way, fake, impossible. There's no way you can get more than this, right? Like they're just so close-minded that they don't even like take that first step to being open to like, oh, maybe I can do this too, because it's like, no, it doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Second thing is he said he believed that he was going to be the one to find it. Right. And so it's more of like this self-belief type thing of like, hey, the treasure exists and I'm going to find it, And I think some people think things exist or they see a certain lifestyle and it's like, yeah, like it exists, it's there, but I don't believe that I'm the one that's going to live it. Right. That's for other people to live. Like I'm not on that level. So I love that. Believe it exists. Believe he was going to find it. Any guesses on the third one?
Never give up.
Yeah. Don't.
Actually look for it. Look.
Well, no. I mean, it could be either don't quit or it could be, figure out specifically, hone in your vision, maybe.
Actually
Good.
look.
So
Final answer.
Final answer. So he said he believed it was going to be worth it when he found it. Right? Like all the work, everything that went into it was going to be worth it. And so those are the three things. He believed the treasure existed, believed he was going to find it, and he believed when he did find it that it was going to be worth it. And I think that was even like I was in the door-to-door sales space, right, for 8 years and sold door to door, like recruited teams, managed people, and sold, and it was great, like awesome, right? But like at the end of it, I look at that and I looked at like the next level and what that looked like, and like I believed it was there, right? I knew people that were doing that, and like my regional managers and what they were making, I knew it was real. Did I believe I could get there? Like I did, yeah, I really did. But like that last one, I didn't think it was going to be worth it. Right. I looked at like the lifestyle, I looked at the time commitments, and I looked at like the financial reward from it. And I'm just like, that's not worth it. Like I know how much time and work it's going to take to get there. Yeah. And I don't think the payout or the lifestyle is worth it. And so that's when I pivoted. Right. And that's ultimately why I didn't go down that route, or probably why I didn't achieve it too. Right. And so I just think those things are so important, and it goes hand in hand with everything we're talking about, because you have to have that in whatever you're doing. And if you don't have it, it's like, well, no wonder you're living an average life, because you don't believe that something outside of that exists. That's the very, very, very first step.
And exists for you. And then the next step, I mean, I'm thinking about Tom Burns, because when we had Tom Burns on, are you familiar with Tom Burns, who Tom Burns is? He wrote a book called Why Doctors Don't Get Rich. He was the first person in history to ever buy Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He bought the first copy from a car wash. And anyways, Tom Burns is awesome. We had him on, and a lot of the stuff you say, he was talking about, even when you talked about the even just that little comment you made about mailbox money.
Yeah.
Tom Burns said the same thing.
A lot of the same terminology.
Anyways, that right there, I was like, and his story is using real estate, getting into real estate, and being able to have his passive income trump or exceed his surgeon income. And that was the big, moment when he was able to do that. Anyways, and I thinking about that and like being so inspired by that, and I'm like, wow, that'd be nice. That'd be really cool, that would be. But then you get back to where, well, that's not me. That's impossible, because then there's all sorts of things you start saying why that's, can't be you or not you. So I just think that it's really valuable that the things that you talked about, and it happens to people.
That's why I would say too that yes, that guy who hunted for the treasure, he was hungry, but I think there's a lot of hungry people out there that have the wrong mindset, right? They're gonna be the people in Brody's comments that say, no way, that can't happen. It's not that they don't want the freedom any more than the positive people, but it's that their minds aren't open up to it. And so yes, hunger, you got to have your drive, but I think there's a lot of driven people that they go, let's say they're going to stick with summer sales or their 9 to 5, or they're going to work just as hard maybe, but the belief and the mindset is the real kicker, because you see a lot of people that outwork you maybe in just pure pounding the pavement maybe, but the mindset and the belief is an ingredient that these successful people we're talking about really all have.
And I want to hear your thoughts on this, Brody, but I just want to loop back to the very beginning where I started, because I think this ties into the other thing that I mentioned that you've talked about, Brody, and that I've learned from you, which is when you get into that mindset, and then if you see that there's this other way, or this opportunity, or this life, is what I'm doing now, is that going to get me to where I want to be? And that's what I had to even ask myself, is the path I'm on now that I went down, and sometimes it's a raft, you're floating down a river, but is that going to get me where I want to be? And if not, that's a hard conversation out with yourself. That's hard to say, I'm not on the right path, and now I have to make a change. And that's not fun either. Those changes aren't fun. And I bet it's just not easy and not fun. I said that 5 times.
It's true though.
Yeah, it's not fun for a lot of reasons, right? One of them, you have to admit that you were wrong, and we all struggle doing that, right? And I think that it made me think of, so one of my buddies I went golfing with. I guess deep conversations happen when you're golfing. I don't know, but anyhow, we were golfing, and like he's telling me how he doesn't love his job. There's certain things that are going on, not super stoked about it. And then in the same breath, he's telling me, this other side, which is the side of like, I want everyone to think that I'm like super happy and doing well and crushing it. And it's like, yeah, it's awesome. Like, yeah, I'm really lucky to be having this. Like and at the end of it, I'm just like, dude, well, which one is it? You gotta
That's
decide,
a good
bro.
point.
Like part of you is trying to convince yourself that you should be grateful, and there's nothing wrong. Like, yeah, be grateful you have the job, but like, if you're not happy and you feel like it's below your potential and you're capable of something else, then do something about it or don't. But either way, don't sit here and go back and forth like, oh, I'm happy. No, I'm not. And play the whole game. And so I don't know. I just think that it's not an easy thing, but you also look at the alternative. Do you want to keep doing the things that you're doing and living the way that you're living and feeling the way that you're feeling about what you're doing? Like, that sounds way more miserable than almost taking a leap on something and taking a chance on something.
Totally. And I'll just say, for me, the hardest part about making these course changes, just my personality, it could be different for everybody, but admitting that I'm wrong is easier for me, and I'm able to do it more. Than the harder part is admitting that I don't know the path forward, and being willing to, like, it's easy for me to like take correction and say, okay, I'm wrong. Like I've reached that point where that's something I'm comfortable with. And so making these course changes is easier for me if I know the path forward. So if I'm making the wrong choice and I see clearly the path forward, then I can do it. But it's really hard for me to swallow my pride and say, hey, I'm not only am I making the wrong choice and I'm wrong, that's the easy part, but now which way do I go? And I think that's really where you need the gut check after you've gotten comfortable with being wrong. You need to be comfortable with admitting that you don't know where you're going to go, so you'll dig a little deeper too. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's good, dude. I think too, like, one of my favorite questions is always like, hey, if you could wave a magic wand, like, what does that look like? What does your life look like? What does your business look like, or whatever the topic is, right? And I love that because it takes everything off the table. Well, it's like, well, if I could wave a magic wand, then yeah, sure, I'd want this. And even though they don't believe that they're maybe capable or that's possible for them to do that or live that way, it takes all that out of the equation. And so it's like, oh yeah, well, if I could have anything I wanted, then I want this. And so that's the first step. And I feel like once you get there, then you're open to that and you can see it. And I think that's why I love like the concept of one, dreaming bigger, faster. Like I love that, right? I went and bought the URL for that because I love that concept so much. Like dreaming bigger, faster. Like we need to all do that. And then like dream it, write it, build it, live it. And it's so important to like take your dreams and then write them down and like solidify them. Like this is this is my dream. This is what I want. I'm clear on it, right? Like I've taken the first step of getting it out of my head to becoming a reality because now it's on paper and like I've written all these things down and I can see it and it's clear. And then I think like to your point, Ben, that you get to a point where it's like, okay, I might not know the path forward and it's uncomfortable and I'm prideful about it, but I want it so bad and I see it so clearly that like I really don't care if I have to say I don't have all the answers. If that's going to allow me to figure it out, then I want to go and figure it out.
Yeah. Confess it. Get out of the closet about your dreams, right? And I've learned, just get in the room with people and admit your weaknesses and get it over with, right? Get it over with today and tell them you need help with something and there's something that you really need to learn, because you're gonna have to learn it later, and it'd be the fastest way just to come clean and get there, dream it bigger, faster, right? Cut to the chase and go towards those awkward, embarrassing conversations so you can get where you really want to be. It's a big deal.
100%. That is. How are we doing on time with you, Brody? We obviously really value your time. I think we're coming.
You guys are good. There, my family's at a birthday party, so just whatever you guys.
I got one. I want to talk really quick because this is something that comes up. Diversification versus specialization, both in, I'd say, real estate and in business, right? What is your take on that? I know you have your hands in a lot of different things, and that's pretty natural as you kind of scale up in a real estate business. But what's your plan going forward? Are you still going to diversify? Or are you specializing? What's the plan?
Yeah, so this applies to real estate as well as business and life. I've actually thought about this a little bit recently, and I even listened to a podcast this morning with Alex Ramosi, and he was just talking about it as well. Like, do you have a bunch of 7-figure businesses, or do you have an 8-figure business? Right? Like what's like do you go, what's the focus? And to a lot of it's like, well, having multiple streams of income sounds like way less risk, especially if they're all, producing well. But he gave an example of one of his friends. He's like, he has probably 60 different businesses and they're all on an Excel spreadsheet. And it's a lot for him to like manage and do, but it's always stressing him out. And he was having a conversation about it one time with him. And he's like, he said he makes about 8 figures with all these different businesses. And he's like, I asked him, I said, hey, if you could get rid of all of those businesses and you just focused on one of them, like, what do you think you could go do with that one business? And he's like, oh, if I only had to focus on one, he's like, easy, it would be, 20-30 million dollar company or whatever. Right.
Wow.
And he's like, I've been thinking about that a lot lately because it's actually more money, going an inch deep versus a mile wide type conversation. But it got me thinking just in general about it too. But I think that there's so much power in clarity, eliminating distractions, going all in. And that was the whole focus of like that podcast that he was talking about, was like, he's like, all of my friends that have really big businesses and they're making a lot of money, he's like, they have a very narrow focus and they did the boring stuff and they just didn't stop doing it, for a decade plus. They just kept doing it. They got known for what they're doing. And he brought up an interesting point. I think so many times, like, why do we get our hands in different things? And I'm for sure guilty of this. I feel like a lot of the stuff I do, it's more just like following my passions and like, what are the things that get me more fulfilled, right? Like,
right.
It's the same thing with like Young Entrepreneurs Club. Like, I love the entrepreneur side of things. Right now, I'm so focused on the real estate side of things, but I'm like, I love talking entrepreneurship. So like, I want to have an outlet to talk that. So like, that's fun for me, right? Like different things where
Fun
it's like, hey, if I'm involved in this, is this gonna, there's a few other companies that I am part owner in, and like, I'm like, hey, I don't want to, like, my role is visionary and I'll have these fun conversations. But like just so you know up front, like this is my, like I'm not going to be boots on ground type person. And so having those conversations up front has been good. And so I get to participate in things that I actually like and enjoy, and it fills my cup versus like drain my battery.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big part of it as well. But yeah, I think more and more and more, I'm just leaning towards, yeah, it's so important to go all in and be known for one thing, be known for your niche, master it and be the best at it, be world class at it. And the way that he explained it was like you have these buckets, right? And this is how you can go get ahead of other businesses. Is what happens is instead of filling your bucket and only filling one bucket, you get people as soon as they start to taste a little bit of success, it's like, I'm going to use some of my resources and fill these other buckets as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so they take that steady stream that's filling their main bucket, and you can actually go and compete with them and even do better than them, right? Because if you're only focused on filling one bucket, now they have to fill 3 buckets, and it just spreads out their resources. And so it was an interesting analogy. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly kind of what happens. And so, yeah, I feel differently about it with like real estate too. I think, yeah, it's important to diversify, obviously, but I also think like owning your niche and learning your niche, and there's different ways to diversify within your niche, if that makes sense. So
Totally.
trying to think of, without being too specific, I guess, of what strategy that is.
No, I mean, I ask because I'm going through it, so it's applicable to me, right? So for us, we're doing big storage ventures. We're doing specifically storage deals, and it takes more time for these deals to come about. So every once in a while, I'll see the other kind of property that I really like. It's kind of like my temptation is like the frat house model, where you just put a bunch of guys in a house. I have 9 guys in a house in Orem, and I have one in St. George. So it's always tempting for me because it's like I could do those more often, but I always have to kind of bring myself back to, hey, I'm focused on storage right now. That's what I'm trying to like master. And even though it takes more time for those deals to come about, once they do, they pay out way better. Like one storage facility pays out way better than a bunch of frat houses. So I asked because I know you have your container lodge, and you have a bunch of frat houses yourself, and you have single family homes. I'm like, I think you do a good job of specializing, but I know you're also well diversified. So I had to ask your plan going forward. So
Yeah, no, it's such a good question. And I feel like where, and that goes back to the focus, right? And that's what we focus on real estate investing schools. Like there's a lot of different ways to do real estate and a lot of different outcomes from it. But like the thing that I don't diversify in is I build passive income, right?
Yeah.
And I want to invest in assets that will allow me to have time freedom, and that I can do that using strategies that don't require a lot of my capital, right? And so anyhow, knowing that, there's like a bunch of different ways to go and do that, which by doing that and by default, it diversifies you. But ultimately, that's still the main thing, right? Is building that passive income that's stable.
Yeah, that's incredible. I think there's really good parallels too to what you're saying with people's time. I mean, you talked about resources and buckets. Sometimes for an individual, that's their time in buckets. And I was just thinking about myself. Well, like my time, I got into the phototherapy business,
Yeah.
and then I'm like, and then I did accounting as a service, and I still have both those. I started doing that, and then the podcast is just for fun, but you just.
yeah, you have 4 businesses.
And I'm just
dude.
like, I should just stop. You want to you need to stop trying to do more things and do less. Sometimes doing less is a good way to go.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it goes back to delegating, right? Like what we talked about.
Yeah, it does.
In the beginning, in a lot of ways, it's like, hey, can I do this? And that's the first thing. Like, I'm not sure if you guys read the book Who Not How, right? But it's like, as soon as something comes up that needs to get done, the first thing that enters your mind should be, who's going to do this? Not how am I going to do this, but like, who's going to do this for me? And so I think that it's the same thing with businesses. It's like, if you're going to do that and you're going to run that, and there's a lot of people who do it very, very high level and do that very, very successfully. But their strategy is they implement the right people right off the bat from the very, very get go. And I think the last part of that is like you need to have your 5 to thrive, right? You need to have like, does this fall in like one of my 5 things, you know? And it's
Yeah.
like, if it doesn't, then yeah, that's when you evaluate it and be like, okay, you know, is this frat house, is this one to eliminate?
Yeah.
Is this one to delegate where I still maybe take it on, but I bring on a partner and they're the one managing it and they're the one putting the money in it, but like I found the deal and it pencils and so we split it and there's some upside. And it's not going to take that much of my time. Or do I just get rid of it completely, right? And focus on my main thing and not lose that. But I think just understanding like what are you world class at, what are you the greatest at, what do you thrive on, and like staying in your niche with those things and not going outside of that.
Love it, man. Maybe to wrap it, I want to ask a question. For you, for Brody Fausett, what does success look like, and what's the best way to measure it?
You're supposed to prep me for like a deep question like that.
Okay, take your time.
um, it's interesting just because it's changed, right? It changes over the years. Not doesn't change from a perspective of like, you know, you want more, and that stick is always moving, but it changes, I think, because you grow and you realize like what the important things are and what matters. You know, the things that mattered a lot more early on don't matter as much now, right? And you just learn and you grow through those things. But um without rambling, success, I think success is it's summed up by like one, how you view yourself, how those people that are closest to you and mean the most to you also view you. And I would also say like it has to do, maybe this answers a question on how you measure it, right?
Yeah.
But like it's measured off of potential. I think that's what like I think that's how God judges us. It's like what are we capable of and how do we measure up to what we're capable of? And I think that's ultimately how we should measure ourselves and measure our success. It's like, hey, on a scale of 1 to 10 today, like 10 being what like was my very best, like where did I measure up? I love the art of like fulfillment and becoming fulfilled. And I think as we're growing and hitting different levels, like ultimately we become fulfilled. And so I would say like success is a combination of how many days in a year do you feel fulfilled?
Wow. I like I like the whole everything you said, but there's two things that really struck me. The first one was, how do the people you're closest to see you, right? Because I don't know. To me, it's really important how I see like I just kind of am having this epiphany, right? Like your self fulfillment is important, but I'm just thinking about my wife. It's like it's probably more important. It's probably more important to me it is, whether it should be or not, I don't know, but probably more important to me how she sees me than how I see myself. So that's a really big deal. And I also love what you brought up about potential, right? Like kind of like the parable of the talents type of principle. Like really that removes any comparison or competition with others. It just makes it more of a intimate process. Like success is just more about, God gave you this many talents and how many of them did you multiply versus bury. So,
well, yeah, and
thanks, Brody.
That's why the personal thing is so important too. And not how other people. I mean, the family. That's important to think about. It's not how, I don't people on social media view you or I don't know, just random people, but how you view yourself. Because we had Kyle Boyer on. Kyle, he's dedicated his life to coaching, and there's tons of coaches out there, and this like athletic coaches, and they probably find that success in themselves because, and then it goes back to fulfillment. because they believe, you know, they're helping those kids, and that's what brings them joy and fulfillment, and they find success in that. And that's important. You know, it's different for everybody. That's also important to note as well, that it's not going to be the same for, you know, each person across the board. So
Absolutely. Well, Brody, thanks for coming on and providing huge value to our audience and to everybody. I feel like anyone listening would be hugely impacted. When we started this, we're like, who do we need to have on? First name to come to the list was Brody. We wanted to get a couple episodes under our
You
belt.
were just saying that, yeah.
One of the first names, right?
he said Andrea first.
Yeah, we were like, we got to get Andrea on first.
A comes before B in the alphabet. You know, but
Yes, but seriously, man, thank you. You guys find Brody on Real Estate Investing School. Join the YEC. Me and Kallan have been, I'm proud to say, huge students and supporters since the very first show,
Ben
first
has.
week.
I've come
yeah, we
in
appreciate
halftime.
it.
Yeah, I'm an OG YEC True Blood.
I don't even. Yeah. Anyways.
And everyone remember to tip your landlord, okay? That is one of the big takeaways, right? Your landlord's working hard for you.
We're gonna cut
Or on
this-
a beach in
Love that
Hawaii.
shirt.
We're gonna cut this in a reel so we can get all those trolls after you
Yes.
on social media.
Brody, appreciate it, man. Thanks for coming on.
Hey,
Thanks,
guys.
Brody.
You guys are awesome.
You're awesome. Thanks.